Hi, everybody, and welcome to Proline, direct from Las Vegas. I'm Dave Koch, joined by Jim Feist. We're going to take a look ahead to Week 3 of the college football campaign, plus get to NFL Week 2. But first, before we do anything like that, Jim, we got to talk about subscribing to the channel. It's free, and there's a lot of good stuff that goes with that for free.
Absolutely, Dave. Go to ProlineTV.com. Click on the subscribe button, and you'll get notifications on new videos. Plus, you'll be sent a code to get 7 days of my service absolutely free. That's ProlineTV.com.
So we talk about what we've got going. The baseball season is closing on a high note for me. It's been real good down the stretch. Got say my luckiest winner of the year on Tuesday night. Had the Padres at a nice underdog price, down 4-1. Going to the ninth inning, they get a 5 spot against the Giants bullpen, win 6-4. That's nice. Nice to be lucky once in a while too. College football, there wasn't any luck involved. Just pretty much blew things apart on Saturday, including my September game of the month I told you about. Tennessee gets off to the bad start and then goes on a 45-3 rampage and wipes out Virginia Tech before the biggest in-person crowd of all time in college football. So that stuff's pretty good. 2 weeks of football and Major League Baseball with me for just $79. You get plays every day. I've got a big play tonight, one of my Value Plus games. That's a high roller selection. 855-472-2577, the number to call. Jim, you just smashed the first week in the NFL, 10-2-1, including a perfect 4-0 on the big stuff. Vikings, Chargers, Ravens, and the under in the Rams 49ers game, which was nice because you only had to worry about one team scoring any points in that game. 3-1 on the high roller college plays on Saturday in upset game of the year. Washington State gets in under the number against Boise State, an exciting game. What else? It's Fan Appreciation Week.
It's right, Dave. It really is. Today through Monday, football and baseball, including a $500 high roller, all for $99. Just use the code PROLINE, P-R-O-L-I-N-E. This is a $7,000 package for just $99. And you call 866-546-9467. That's 866-546-9467.
All right, so we got a couple of pretty big games to look at. One of them is Alabama Ole Miss. We're going to look at Ohio State, Oklahoma first. Let's start with the SEC matchup, which is Alabama and Ole Miss. In Alabama, coming off a very nice win last week, but not one that Nick Saban was real happy about. He was yelling at Lane Kiffin on the sidelines. He's a perfectionist, and he wants his team to go out there and play Alabama football every week. He didn't think they did it against Western Kentucky. That might be bad news for Ole Miss. And double revenge for the Tide to boot.
It's hard to believe that they have double revenge against anybody because this team almost never loses.
No.
So, I mean, yes, this team has had their number, and now you got Alabama 10.5 or 11-point road favorite. Saban is kind of like a Belichick, and I think they're actually friends.
Yes, they are.
They're tough on their people. They demand perfection. You called him perfectionist. He probably is. Well, Belichick probably is too. These tough coaches seem to get more done than the guys that are a little bit too friendly with their players, like Rex Ryan. They don't get the discipline from them. So if you're a boss, you got to be a boss. You can be a friend. You can be, but you got to get what you got to get, and you can't let the Indians or the inmates run the show, and he doesn't, and he gets a lot out of it. Double revenge is a very bad spot for Ole Miss here because you just don't want to run into Alabama when they're pissed.
No, and which Ole Miss are we going to see? Are we going to see the team that played the first half against Florida State and looked really good, or the second team the second half unit that got blown out and kind of got exposed from an athletic standpoint because Florida State was simply too fast for Ole Miss in that game. And if that's accurate, then Ole Miss is in trouble here because Alabama is very athletic and very fast.
Very. And, when you look at this matchup and you think about what they can do physically on the field, and both of them can dominate, both of them Alabama defensively is remarkable. But I'm kind of looking at this number, this total, 54 and a half, slight money to the over. Granted, Alabama deserves to be the favorite. What do you think about the total, Dave?
I don't think
Any
much
opinion?
about it. No, I don't do much with college football totals, so it's kind of, I was focused more on the side, and to be honest with you, it's a game where my power ratings indicate the line's too high, but I'm not going to play into that because my power ratings also indicated the line was too high in Ole Miss, Florida State. And after watching that game, it might be that my power rating on Mississippi isn't where it should be. Maybe they're not as high or as good as I thought they were. And one thing I noticed about Kelly, he holds the ball too long in the pocket. And I think that's something Alabama's going to exploit. So it's kind of, I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on this game because I don't want to play against my numbers because my numbers for the most part are really good. But I don't think I trust the numbers to be correct in this situation. And if gun to head, I think I'd probably play Alabama, but I'm not going to.
Well, let's analyze what the public's going to do with this. This is a big game, CBS game. Everybody likes to get involved with the Alabamas, Ohio States, Oklahomas, the big name schools, Clemson included in there. Game opened 9, is up to 11, some 10.5s out there, and 77% of the bets have come in on Alabama.
Not surprising.
However, if the sharps are sitting back and they're waiting for the public to drive this up, because you got the double revenge, you got Saban, you got the fact that he was screaming at Kiffin, et cetera, I think the public's going to keep pushing this number, and the sharps are going to come up with the big dollars that'll move this game down, maybe even below the 9. I'm waiting for that.
All right.
I think there's a spot there, but I kind of like the over. I like the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Alabama quarterback gives Saban something he hasn't had in a while, which is a lot of athleticism and versatility at that position. This guy is not just a drop-back passer. He can do a lot of things out there, and that's why it's scary to think of how good Alabama's been with what I thought were okay college quarterbacks, but not stars. And now he's got one who this kid's got a chance to be a great football player.
If you like Mississippi and you want to bet Mississippi, I'd do it now, or maybe just a day, wait one more day. But when it gets down to Friday, maybe even Thursday afternoon, I think you're going to start seeing the other side get the money. This is too big a number for me to lay on the road, but I could definitely come in here and lay at 8 in this game. And I could definitely go over the total.
A lot of the sports books put up early numbers on games. They call them games of the year, and they focus on a lot of big games and put numbers up. If you were one of those who got in early and took the points with Ohio State when they put the number up against Oklahoma, boy, are you sitting pretty going into this weekend.
Oh my
because
God.
This is an enormous line shift from where it was.
You got an 11-point move in this game. Unbelievable. Who does that?
Well, based on what we've seen so far, kind of looks justified. I mean, I got to tell you, if you told me you could have, however, if you give me 3 with Ohio State right now, I would take it.
Yeah.
They're better than Oklahoma. They're more athletic. And by the way, Urban Meyer versus Big Game Blob is not. I know it used to be called Big Game Bob, but you got to win one of those once in a while. You get your name changed. Big Game Blob, who got completely outcoached in the Houston game. And now Urban Meyer, that's a former Urban Meyer assistant, and now he gets to face Urban Meyer. And it turns out Ohio State is already better than we thought they'd be. I know they lost a lot of people.
It's one of those programs they never really go down.
And they might end up being better than they were last year.
They don't rebuild, they reload.
Yep.
And with Meyer, who's one of the best there is, guys, I mean, him and Saban are kind of on equal footing.
Great coaches.
So, yeah. It's on the other night, we saw Belichick getting 9.5 points from Arizona because, they had a lot of reasons.
Half the team was out.
Not half.
Well, okay,
but they had a couple offensive linemen.
Yep.
Who cares about offensive linemen, right? Gronkowski. Who cares about Gronkowski? Brady. Who cares about that? 9.5-point favorite to go to Arizona and win the game.
Yeah, and pretty much dominated it. I mean, Arizona made it really interesting, and then they missed a field goal at the end of the game, but which should have gotten them a win.
So
if you had New England, you could just sit back and enjoy some cocktails during the game. Never sweat.
The point was, you're right. The point was, you get the Belichicks or the Urban Meyers of the world, and you give them 9 points.
Yeah.
Are you crazy? You can't do that. These guys are too good. They know how to get around. They know how to manipulate their team to play better.
Well, the line's not 9 anymore, and in fact, Ohio State's now going in as the favorite. And Oklahoma's whole season is on this game. Because if they lose this game, I don't care what they do in the Big 12, they're out of the playoff chase. They will have 2 losses and they're dead. So it's a must-win for Oklahoma.
The motivation's equal on both sides because Ohio State has national championship aspirations as well, but with a better coach. Yes, it's on the road, but home field advantage in all sports has really deteriorated over the years because, why? Nutrition's better, travel arrangements and conditions at staying in hotels and traveling on whether it's buses, airplanes, whatever, are better. It used to be home field advantage, but in reality, it was travel team disadvantage. So, and we could talk about that, and I could switch a little bit to San Francisco. This week has to travel to Carolina, who lost 10 days ago, which would, on Sunday, it'll be 10 days, to the champions, Denver. But San Francisco played the late game, the really late game on Monday night. Who made this schedule? This is very unfair. 3,000 miles to play Carolina? Yeah, they look good against the Rams, but that's the Rams. So that's that's what I talk about is travel team, the road team disadvantage, along with the advantage of having 10 days off, playing at home. Why they're a 13, 14-point favorite? That's why. So in this case, I don't give Oklahoma that much of a home advantage
I just can't make a good case for Oklahoma.
Right.
And if it comes down to a push versus shove situation where a critical decision by the coaching staffs I've got to trust Ohio State more.
That's a gimme there. That's a gimme.
So it's Buckeyes are pass for me. It's probably going to be a pass because the side's a little too public for me. But, again, gun to head, I'm taking Ohio State.
Well, the two teams we talked about, 2 games, I'm leaning both road teams.
All right. If you want to ask us any Vegas sports wagering questions, go to ProLineTV.com and just drop us a question. Doesn't cost anything. And speaking of not costing anything, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and you'll get 7 days of action free.
Plus, go to JimFeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, and my free fast facts and plays from the nation's top handicappers.
All right, come back. We'll take a look at some NFL Week 2 action, including the matchup between the 1-0 Chiefs and the 1-0 Texans, and boy, did they get there in different ways.
Yes, they sure did.
All right, the Kansas City Chiefs and Houston Texans matching up this week. Both teams were winners last week. They did it in completely different styles. The Chiefs appeared to be hopelessly out of their game at home against the San Diego Chargers, come back from a 24-3 deficit to win. Houston got a game from the Chicago Bears. Bears gave them a real good battle. First half, the Bears go off with a nice drive at the end of the first half, and they're leading by 1 point. Houston did shut them down in the second half and did enough offensively to win the game. I didn't think the offense for the Texans looked real good in the game, though. In fact, I'll go so far as to say I thought Osweiler was a bit of a disappointment last weekend and is going to have to get better if this team is going to make a serious run to being a Super Bowl contender.
We have to realize that the quarterbacks of the old days are gone, and the ones that are left are about out the door because of age and injury. Romo, people like that. So we're going to be dealing with a different style of quarterback going forward. The game has changed. The colleges are all into the spread offense stuff, and offensive lines are not as good because they're not taught to block the way they used to years ago, and protect the quarterback is a different situation. I think Osweiler is very good. I think he will be excellent. He's a big, tall, athletic kid, and I thought he did a real good job with Denver last year, but the coaching staff really screwed him over. Probably some politics in there with other players and stuff, and they put Manning back in. Now, granted, Manning knows football to this day better than most.
And he still managed. They wanted to manage the tempo.
Yes.
They wanted boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
And Manning was simply better at that than Osweiler. So
he's better than most people doing anything. He's just a phenomenally intelligent guy. I mean, he really is. But Osweiler has a lot of talent, and I think he's going to go places in this league. He got a big contract. It's going to take a while for all of these teams in the NFL to catch on to their offenses, to the offensive coordinators, to the style they want to play, to the other players on the squad, to the timing of the whole thing. The difference between week 1 and week 2 and week 3 in the NFL is immense. Why? Because years ago, the collective bargaining agreement came in and says you can only practice this much, and you can only have pads on this much, and you can't hit each other too much because you're delicate and you might break. So when they get into the season, they're not really ready to play. They haven't really played in a couple of weeks because the last time they played at all was the dress rehearsal in week 3 of the preseason. Week 4, they hardly played at all. So now they get into week 1, and they're not really, time isn't great, their physicality isn't great. Then they haven't been hit that much, so that when they come out to week 2, guess what? They're more sore than they have been the whole year because now they've taken some punishment in the game. So things all change between week 1, week 2, and week 3. You're not going to really see real football from these teams and who's good and who's not until about week 3, week 4. So right here, you got two pretty good teams. Alex Smith has been around a long time. He's proven himself. He is not a game manager. This guy knows how to play football. I think he's conservative by nature. He wasn't in college necessarily, but in the pros, he has taken on that feel of being conservative, managing his percentages and interceptions and turnovers, and he's very, very good at what he does. It's the coaching staff that calls the plays. He doesn't always do that. He might audible off to something like that. So I'm kind of impressed with Alex. They have kind of dominated Texans the last couple of years, but the Texans are different. I'm going to say this, and I'm not being critical, but Bill O'Brien still has not proven himself yet in the pros to be a champion type of quarterback where you can go up against really good teams and beat them. Kansas City is a really good team. And they have coaching on that team that have been to the higher levels. The question now is, who should be the favorite in this game? Is it all because of home court? The odds makers came out with a 1. Houston 1. Public has driven this thing up to 2.5. Little odds on the favorite, 2.5 minus 10, 2.5 minus 15. Yeah, Kansas City made a big comeback after being way down last week to San Diego. San Diego is a choke artist. They have terrible coaching. The ownership is awful. One of the worst owners in the whole league. That's a team. They lost Keenan Allen.
Oh, that's a big
That was
injury.
huge. I mean, he's one of the best 5-6 wide receivers in the game. But then they managed the game wrong. They kicked field goals where they shouldn't because they gave up field position. They didn't run the ball, run the clock out. The coaching staff on San Diego is terrible. They're not going to get. I don't think they'll get too much of that here at the Texans. I think it's a toss-up type of game. I look at both defenses to kind of dominate the game. I think 43 is better than 43.5. It's probably an underplay.
I think this is a game that's a one-possession game and therefore falls into the two-way teaser category. Lots of those out there in the NFL. Boy, there were so many close games last week, and I think that this game...
What was there, 4 or 5 one-point games?
Yeah, I mean, it was just nail-biters all over the place. Now, the other game we're going to look at right now is Atlanta and the Raiders. And Atlanta turned out to be pretty much what a lot of us thought they would be last week, which is not very good. A continuation of last season. Their defense is not sharp at all. They did some good things offensively, but not enough. The Raiders were involved in an absolutely wild football game with the Saints. They got a lucky win. That was a bad call that decided the football game. Sorry, it wasn't pass interference. It just wasn't, okay? And New Orleans should have won that game, but look, the officials are going to throw the flag every time you don't turn your head around, even if you're not interfering. So I guess you could say the New Orleans guys should have known better. But what we saw was the Raiders got their offense going, but albeit against a very bad defense. And Oakland's defense wasn't exactly sensational either, but they might have been against a very good offense. So it's tough to read what's going to happen out of that. I can't lay this many points with the Raiders yet. They have to prove it to me, but I really don't want any part of Atlanta, which to me looks like a team that's headed for last place this year.
I totally agree with everything you said, and Del Rio going for the 2-point
Well, I love that. Not as a bettor, because I happen to have the Saints, so I wanted overtime, but from a fan standpoint and an analytical standpoint, of course you go for 2 there. Against that defense, yes. Try and win the game.
Well, I'll agree and disagree with you on that. And let me tell you why.
Okay, but all I'm going to say, I'll complete it with this. If you let it go to overtime and you lose the coin toss, you probably lose the game.
Yeah, because you can't stop them.
Right.
So in that respect, I totally agree he should have gone for 2. The problem is you can't give Drew Brees 50 seconds on the clock and put him in a field goal position. So that's an issue. If it would have been 10 seconds on the clock or 15 or even 20, and you can kick him deep and not get him into position, but when you put Brees in that kind of situation,
And that guy just missed that 61-yard field goal.
I know.
I thought it was going to go through when he hit it.
That was the only reason, and the caveat. You look up at that clock, geez, we can't give Brees that much time. But if you go to overtime, like you say, kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I like the go for the aggressive attitude. I think it's the team comes out of that feeling, hey, our coach believes in us.
Remember this too. They went to Crabtree.
Yep.
The other guy, what's his name? The other wide receiver that's the most dominant of the two. I can't remember his name for Oakland.
Man, I'm blank.
Okay. That's who you would think they'd go to. But the lineup showed that they were doubling him. And the name is just not coming to me. So when they called the timeout, Rio calls the time, they go to the sideline, he says, forget about him, whatever his name is, Mr. No Name for me because I can't remember. Amari Cooper.
There you go.
Amari Cooper. Who'd be the guy you'd go to? That's who you'd think you would go to. But they said, no, he's doubling him. Let's go to Crabtree. Perfect play. Everything was fine. The danger was giving Brees too much time on the clock. But I totally agree with you. They should have gone for it. Percentage-wise, it was actually about equal, especially since you can't stop the Brees anyway. So this is a great game. I like the over in this game. And the reason I do that, neither defense
I would agree.
Can actually stop the other. I don't know. Real mystery here. Let's talk a little bit about one guy here. Matty Ice. What has happened to this guy? He came out of, this guy was like amazing. Smart guy, came out of a good school, and all of a sudden they're on a 2-11 ATS run. What is with this team? They cannot cover a spread. They can't win a game. What happened to Matty Ice?
They don't know, and neither do I. But he's certainly not the quarterback he used to be, and it makes it tough to back the Atlanta Falcons at any point. Excuse me, at this point in time. Jim, viewers can get free plays from us right to their cell phone every day. It's that easy.
That's right, Dave. This is about as easy as it gets. Just text GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827. You'll get a free play right to your cell phone. That's right, GAME to 25827.
All right, so we're going to continue with the NFL Showdown, and this is a beautiful game. Sunday night, NFC North, Packers and the Vikings, and boy, this is going to be really exciting.
New stadium.
Revenge game for Green Bay after losing the division title in the finale at Lambeau in Week 17. A lot on the line here. That's next. Okay, Week 2, game of the week. Yeah, it's got to be the Packers and Vikings. A rivalry battle, a lot on the line early in the season between the two teams it's a given they're going to be the top two teams in the NFC North. Even though the Vikings lost Teddy Bridgewater, they're still a really solid football team. And the Packers, a lot of things look good for Green Bay last week. Jordy Nelson's back on the field. Aaron Rodgers is still there. Lacey's in better shape, much better shape than he was last year at this time. A lot of excitement in Green Bay. Brand new stadium opening. This is the only game that they could be using for the Sunday night game this week, and I can't wait to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun, Jim.
I saw pictures of this stadium.
Looks gorgeous.
It's awesome. But they say it potentially is the noisiest stadium in the league by a lot.
Wow.
That's the way it's built.
Well, they want to emulate what they did in Seattle, because I'm telling you what, that is a home field advantage.
That 12th man does work up
Yep.
there. Mike Zimmer's a good coach.
Yes, he is.
He's one of those guys that we talked about earlier, the Belichick, the Atlanta guy, Saban. This is it. This is the way we're going to do it. Perfectionist. They didn't play all that great last week. They were down 10-0 to.
No, the offense looked terrible.
The offense looked terrible.
They scored 2 defensive touchdowns, which is really what keyed that victory.
But they are good
that
on defense.
Woof.
And they can run the football, although they didn't do very well last
Well,
week.
but the problem is nobody thought. I mean, the game plan on the other side for Tennessee was
Stop the run.
We're not going to let Peterson. We're going to run blitz all day. And
Right.
if you want to you would beat us with Sean Hill, fine. Well, now it's Sam Bradford, and look, There's some people who are going to say Sam Bradford isn't a significant upgrade from Sean Hill. And you know what? I disagree a little, but not a lot, because Bradford's numbers for the past 4 years are the worst of any starting quarterback in the league.
I'm going to say it's a downgrade. And why I'm going to say that? I may be a little bit off on this stat, but not by very much. Sean Hill is a starter. Against the points, ATS, 36-12 as a starter. Who in football has that record?
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable. It's certainly not Bradford.
No.
So if we end up with Bradford in this game, which I think would be a mistake, because he doesn't know the offense, he doesn't have a history. He's a guy that you need there in case something happens. Let this guy go until he proves he can't do it. And the other
What do you
thing,
think? Well, I think Bradford's going to start, though.
well, I hope he doesn't. From Minnesota's standpoint, I think that would be a mistake, because he doesn't know the players, he doesn't know the offense, and he doesn't have a history of success. This guy.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I just,
that's coaches.
I don't think they sent away what they sent away to have him back on
Coaches
Sean
make
Hill.
stupid decisions all the time. Just because somebody rises to the position of coach, head coach in the NFL, which is the toughest football league in the world, doesn't mean they're all that smart. Okay? Bottom line, you could have just had great players around you, and when it comes to manipulating things, you make mistakes. There was a book written about 40 years ago called The Peter Principle.
I remember that.
Raise people up to the point where they no longer can perform efficiently or effectively. Sometimes people would become the bosses and they build hotels and forget to put bathrooms in them. I mean, bridges, and it's crazy. So you start putting players in that the other players don't think should be there. You got a little rebellion in the clubhouse. Get this team. This guy says this guy should go. It's not good. I think you should stick with Hill until he proves he can't do the job.
All right. So as for the game itself, the Packers would love nothing. But first of all, the Packers would like to avenge the end of last season when they lost the division at home to the Vikings. Secondly, Green Bay wants to ruin the opening of the stadium. There's nothing they want more than to knock this team off here. And it's tough because my number really says the game's a flat toss-up, and so that any points available either way in this game would be the value. But boy, I don't want to go against.
What would be the line if Bridgewater was still there?
Probably Vikings 2.
That would be a 5-point move on the number. That's a big number.
I think
it's huge.
I think that, and I don't know if that's accurate in terms of how much better Bridgewater was than what they have at quarterback, but the perception, especially based on the way he played in the preseason,
played one good game in the preseason.
Well, but I'm not arguing that.
But it is preseason.
I'm saying the perception among fans, analysts, things like that. The perception was that Bridgewater was breaking out this year. Whether that, and let me be clear on this. I'm not saying that. Okay, that's not my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter that much in the NFL. Part of my job is to assess what the perception is out there and act on that to get value. And the perception, and there's just no argument to this, the perception out there. And if you watch ESPN or whatever, sports network, they were all saying the same thing. Boy, Teddy Bridgewater looks great. Teddy Bridgewater looks great. That was the perception out there. So I think that you have a pretty good line swing here based on the public perception. If you disagree with that, that's fine. And then you just go ahead and take the value in the game. So I'm not really making a case for Bridgewater or against Bridgewater. I'm just telling you what was out there in terms of the analysis.
I like Teddy Bridgewater, but I don't like him to be a superstar. He's not an Aaron Rodgers, not Brady, he's not Manning in his heyday. He's not Breeze. He's not Eli. He's not Roethlisberger. He's good. He's very good. He's very smart, very affable, learns quickly, a little on the conservative side. He's there to take care of the ball, distribute the passes, make some deep shots here or there, especially since they have a couple better wide receivers now, and hand the ball off to Peterson. That can be done Okay, let's talk a little bit about, and I don't want to prolong the segment, but it's kind of interesting. Last week, they beat Tennessee 25-16. Hill was 18 for 33, 236, no TDs, no picks. That ain't bad.
No, he got going.
That's about what you get.
Second half, he played well. He was not good in the first half.
But the difference
60-minute
between
game.
game 1 and game 2 is huge. First half to second half, when these teams start to get real deal, that's about what you'd get out of Bridgewater, if you look at his stats. So I don't see that. I think there's value with the Vikings when you're taking a 3-point home dog versus a 2-point home favorite. I think the value is with Minnesota.
My opinion, for what it's worth, as much as I think the Packers have an explosive offense, and Aaron Rodgers is one of the great quarterbacks, he's one of the great quarterbacks of all time.
Yes, he is.
I would look at the under in this game. I think the Vikings are going to be conservative. They want to eat clock. They don't want to get into a shootout. If they get into a shootout, they're going to get beat, okay?
Mike McCarthy, 11-5 under the total, last 16 games.
I would look at the under in the football game.
Good point.
Not locking that in as a play, but it's certainly a consideration for me right now. All right, so if you want to get free plays each day on a recorded message from Vegas experts, it's very easy to do. Call a toll-free number, which is 888-478-9222.
And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jim5 Sports. And feel free to send me a direct message with any questions you might have.
All right, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week with another edition of Proline.